page number 2. Come we that love the Lord, and let our joys be known. Join in a song with sweet accord. Join in a song with sweet accord. And thus around the throne, and thus around the throne. We're marching to Zion, beautiful, beautiful Zion. We're marching upward to Zion, the beautiful city of God. Let those refuse to sing who never knew our God, but children of the heavenly King, but children of the heavenly King, may speak their joys abroad, may speak their joys abroad. Oh, we're marching to Zion, beautiful, beautiful Zion. We're marching upward to Zion, the beautiful city of God. Fourth, then let our songs abound, and every tear be dry. Oh, we're marching through Emmanuel's ground. We're marching through Emmanuel's ground to Pharaoh, worlds on high, to Pharaoh, worlds on high. We're marching to Zion, beautiful, beautiful Zion. We're marching upward to Zion, the beautiful city of God. Page number 13, Wonderful Words of Life. Page number 13, Wonderful Words of Life. Page number 13. Sing them over again to me, wonderful words of life. Let me more of their beauty see, wonderful words of life. Words of life and beauty, teach me faith and duty. Beautiful words, wonderful words, wonderful words of life. Beautiful words, wonderful words, wonderful words of life. Christ the Blessed One gives to all, wonderful words of life. Singing a list to the loving call, wonderful words of life. All so freely given, wooing us to heaven. Beautiful words, wonderful words, wonderful words of life. Beautiful words, wonderful words, wonderful words of life. Sweetly echo the gospel call, wonderful words of life. Oh, for pardon and peace to all, wonderful words of life. Jesus, only Savior, sanctified forever. Beautiful words, wonderful words, wonderful words of life. Beautiful words, wonderful words, wonderful words of life. Beautiful words, wonderful words, wonderful words of life. Beautiful words, wonderful words, wonderful words of life.
The scripture this morning comes from the book of Job, chapter 2, verses 11 to verse number 13. Job, chapter 2, verses 11 to verse number 13. And I'll be reading from the King James Version of the Bible. And the scripture reads, Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that was come upon him, they came every one from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, for they had made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and to comfort him. And when they lifted up their eyes afar off and knew him not, they lifted up their voice and wept, and they rent every one his mantle and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. So they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was very great. I've read Job chapter 2, verses 11 and verse number 13. Let us be led in prayer.
I just want to go where the wind don't blow, where trouble winds don't blow. Oh, I want to go where the rain don't flow, when I leave this world to return no more. Oh, I just want to go where the rain don't blow, where trouble winds don't blow. Oh, I want to go where the rain don't blow. Oh, when I leave this world to return no more.
Gracious Father, ruler of all things, you are our creator, provider, and deliverer. We need a lifeline in times like this. Jesus Christ is our lifeline. Thank you for bringing us through another night. Thank you for being back into your house of worship one more time. Because, Lord, we cannot do anything without you. We go through peaks and valleys, highs and lows, good times and bad times. If we are not anchored down, we will drift away from God. Without the anchor, you will not survive the storms of life. That anchor is Jesus. God can open doors no man can close. Closed doors no man can open. We are empty without you. Life is meaningless without you. You are our source, our Lord of lords, our King of kings. Our all in all without you, Lord. We cannot do anything without you. We need your help every hour, every minute, and every second. It's not what people say about us. It's what God says about us. Touch our organs. Stabilize our blood pressure. Thank you for the doctors and the nurses giving us the right medication to return to a portion of our health. Touch our medicine before it enters our bodies. That is, if it be your will. Our mind is a battlefield between our ears. Lord, help us. Lord, we will have conflicts and challenges in this world. Don't straddle the fence. We cannot make this journey alone. We need your help. Thank you for the Holy Spirit. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your mercy, your love. Thank you for your many blessings you have bestowed upon us. Our walking and our talking, our seeing, our hearing. You have brought us a mighty long ways, Father, through health problems, good days and blah days. Bless the sick and shut-ins, Father, including myself. Bless our family, our church family. Bless them from the front of the pew to the back pew, Father. Bless our nation. Bless our community. Bless our pastor. Give him courage, wisdom, and knowledge to continue on. Lord, it's all about you, not about man. And all these blessings we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Oh, Lord, for I really love the Lord. You don't know what He's done for me. Oh, He gave me the victory, and I love Him. Oh, I love Him. I really love the Lord. Oh, I really love the Lord. I really love the Lord. You don't know what He's done for me. Oh, He gave me the victory, and I love Him. Oh, I love Him. I really love the Lord. Oh, I really love the Lord. I really love the Lord. Oh, He died upon the cross, and He died to save the lost, and I love Him. Oh, I love Him. I really love the Lord. You don't know what He's done for me. Said you don't know what He's done. Oh, you just don't know what He's done for me. What He's done for me. Know what He's done for me. I said I shall see his face. I shall see his face. I shall see his face. When it's all over. When it's all over. When it's all over, I'm going to put on my robe. I'm going to put on my robe. Tell the story. Tell the story how I made it over. I'm going to put on my robe. Tell the story. I'm going to put on my robe. Tell the story how I made it over. I'm going to put on my robe. Tell the story how I made it over. I'm going to put on my robe. Tell the story how I made it over. As soon as I get home. Oh, soon as I get home. Sound good. Oh, soon as I get home, I shall wear a crown. I shall wear a crown. When it's all over. When it's all over. When it's all over. I'm going to put on my robe. I'm going to put on my robe. Tell the story how I made it over. As soon as I get home. Oh, soon as I get home.
Good to see everyone now. We know that you could have picked any other day to be at home, because I know most of us did a whole bunch of work at home, and you cut the grass, and you did this, and you did that, and I know you're tired, because I's tired. Both sides are dog tired. But we know that when it comes to worship for the Lord, it doesn't make a difference how tired you think you are, how tired you are. God has never been said, I'm too tired of you, in order to praise him. Amen.
Yes.
So make sure that we remember why we are here and the purpose of us being here, because when people saw you leave, are they just saying, oh, this the people going to put on? Or those are people that are children of God. I can see everything about them that makes me say, you know what, one of these days I'm going to ask, can I go to church with you?
Amen.
We're continuing in our sermon series. Okay, good. All right. We're part 3. And the sermon series is basically simply called Wait Till the Dust Settles. And it's important to remember that I said that this phrase in essence means one will delay any reactionary actions or delay making any rash or impulsive decisions or doing something foolish, and just wait for the situation and what's ever going on to calm down before you say or you do something that you might regret. In other words, I'm not going to react to what's going on, but I'm going to wait till all is said and done, and then I will assess the situation and respond accordingly. And funny part about that is, that's how we really think about it. We see something going on, it's like jump rope. If you ever did the double dutch, you know, you just don't jump in there. You actually have to get your rhythm first. Because you know, get away, let me see you jumping there the wrong way. And you don't hit them 2 steps the right way. It is on, because I'm going to have to record it. And somebody going to say, ooh, you. I can just see me falling down. That's why if I do it, I won't let nobody see me do it. So, the first 2 lessons that I've done, it explained the idea and the customs in the Old Testament, in which I talked about how throwing dust was a way someone would know that you disrespect them. It's like we said, I'm throwing dirt in your face. And then it was throw dust in your face, but dust ain't nothing but finized or finized dirt. Thank you. So it's still anyway. So throwing dust is a way of saying, I dishonor you. I have contempt toward you. As a matter of fact, I say, I can't stand you. I hate you. And I personally would prefer that you would die. And how do we know? Because Shimei cursed him. Remember, cursing means to speak ill will of someone. And he threw rocks. So we have to understand that there was a portion of what throwing dust meant. But this morning I want to show you another meaning of what it means to throw dust. Now, the time that let me say it this way. First time throwing dust meant disrespect. People threw dust on other people. But now we talk about dust. People throw dust on themselves. In other words, if you're not sure what you're thinking, you think you're throwing shade on yourself. No. There was a ritual or an ancient custom where people threw dust on themselves. And throwing dust or throwing dirt or throwing ashes upon oneself or on his head was a symbol of distress, grief, and suffering. Now it's important because where we're going with this, I need to address something that sometimes I think people didn't get the first time I said it, but I'm going to make sure you get it this time. So when he talks about throwing dirt, 1 Samuel, 4th chapter, verse number 12, the messenger who brings to Eli the tidings of the defeat of the Israelites by the Philistines. In his distress and grief of losing, he threw earth upon himself. 2 Samuel, 1st chapter, verse number 2, the messenger who brings David a message, the news of Saul and Jonathan, he threw earth upon himself. Still talking about dirt. 2 Samuel 13, chapter, verse number 19, there was a young lady by the name of Tamar, David's daughter. She was in distress and grief because what happened to her. It says she threw ashes on herself. Dust. Joshua 7, chapter, verse number 6. Joshua and the elders threw dust upon themselves because they were grieving at the time. Ezekiel 27, chapter, verse number 30, the prophets said, make sure I wrote that right. They threw it on themselves and all of God's people wept. Now, why is this important? Let me do Lamentations, because you know Lamentations, the weeping prophet, Jerusalem. The elders at the destruction of Jerusalem threw dust on themselves. Then, of course, we're going to Job, because you heard that in your reading. Job 2nd chapter, verse number 12, where Job's 3 friends, upon approaching him and seeing him afar off and not recognizing him and seeing the sad condition that he was in, it said they wept aloud, tore their robes, and they sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. So, from this particular text, we're going to get the foundation of this morning's sermon. Chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Job, we all should know, but if not, I'll remind you. We see where Job experienced a loss of his wealth and, of course, his material blessings. Then Job experienced a loss of his family members, his children. Then a little bit later on, Job experienced a loss of his health. And by doing so, he showed his grief and mourning and trusted God by tearing his robe, shaving his head, falling to the ground and worshiping. Job 1st chapter, verse number 20. Shaving the head was a part of sign of grief. Tearing your clothes was also a sign of grief and distress and suffering. Now, I'm mentioning all this, the only thing we're going to deal with now is throwing dust on their heads. So in our text this morning, 2nd chapter, verses 11 through 13, the Bible reads in the New King James Version. Now when Job's three friends heard of all of this adversity had come upon him, each one came from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, Zophar the Naamanite, for they had made an appointment together to come and mourn with him and to comfort him. And when they raised their eyes from afar, they did not recognize him. They lifted their voices and wept, and each one of them tore his robe and sprinkled dust on his head toward heaven. So they sat down on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his grief was great. And with this text, I want you to consider for a second this morning. Just sit down and be quiet. Just sit down and be quiet. It's going to make sense in a minute. So let me tell you what Job's friends did. So when I get to why I'm saying sometimes you just need to sit down and be quiet. Job's friends, they sacrificed, or we'll say they chose to sacrifice their own schedule. They put their lives on hold to go check on a friend who was in need of their time and presence. Do y'all see that in the text? They didn't come up the street. They ain't like they had a car and said, I'll see you in about an hour. They had to travel some distances. They chose to put their friend Job before themselves as he's grieving. Now, as I'm saying this, I want you to think about yourself. The last time a friend or family member lost somebody, did you put your stuff on hold? Did you take the time out to go check on them? Did you put them before yourselves? Also, what they did is they made sure that they came at the same time to mourn and comfort him. So they knew that they were friends. And everybody got that posse. If you ain't got something, you got that crew. That when one go down, we all going down. When one's weeping, we all going to weep. When one's joyful, we all going to be joyful. They made an appointment to make themselves come at the same time. Now, I'm sure one probably lived closer. But I want you to notice they made an effort to come together at the same time to mourn and to comfort him. So when they finally saw him, of course, we said earlier, the distance, he didn't look like the friend that they all knew and loved. So what did they do? When you see someone who doesn't look like they used to, when you walk into the hospital and you see somebody who you know used to be 250, 265, you walk in the hospital, he might look 160. He doesn't look like the same person you used to. Guess what it does to the normal person? It makes you weep. I'm going to show you the relationship that these friends had. They wept for him. They tore their robes and they sprinkled dust on their heads as a sign of grief and mourning for their friend Job. Then they sat down with him and didn't say a word for 7 days and 7 nights. And then they tell you why they didn't say anything. Because they saw, let me make sure I say this right. They saw that his grief was very great. Which means, in our words, he was in some deep sorrow. He was in some pain. Now, this is important because the 7 days thing. Why 7 days? Genesis 50:10. 1 Samuel 31:13. Genesis 50:10. 1 Samuel 31:13. 7 days had now become the custom to mourn. So understand that it was just a custom. This is the time frame that you allow someone to mourn. Now, he's getting ready to get interesting in a minute. Because earlier though, Jacob, when he died, the period of mourning was 70 days. When Moses and Aaron died, Lord have mercy, Aaron died, the period of mourning was 30 days. Let me throw that out there. Deuteronomy 34:8, Numbers 20 and 29. Deuteronomy 34 and 8, Numbers 20 and 29. So in other words, at this particular time, it had gotten from 70 to 30 to 7. So in the time, at the time frame that you're supposed to allow one to emotionally, physically, and spiritually grieve was 7 days. So in other words, when a person throws dust on themselves, you're supposed to wait a week and wait till the dust settles before speaking or engaging one who is mourning. Y'all see where I'm going is wait till the dust settles. When someone's grieving, there's dust on them. And we need to wait till the dust settles on them before you open your mouth and start speaking. Here's what I want you to understand, that the one thing that they did by sitting in silence for 7 days should be a good thing for us to consider today. Because one of the best things that you can do when someone's suffering, when someone's sitting in pain, when someone's grieving, when somebody's going through a storm or having a hard time with life, most of the time the best thing you can do is be there for them like his friends. But while you're there, just sit down and be quiet. It's going to make sense in a minute, because you're going to see why I'm getting there and why I'm trying to make sure that I get this in your spirit. Chapter 3. Job, suffering and going through everything he's going through, he begins to say some things that if you didn't know any better, Job is going through a depression. And if you've never been through depression, you really won't understand. But I'm telling you, Job was saying some stuff that's like, well, he ain't where he used to be. And if you keep looking at it from a psychological standpoint, it looks like he's getting ready to have a nervous breakdown. He begins, first of all, by cursing the day he was born. That tells you something where a person is when they wish I wasn't here because of the pain that I'm going through right now. I wish that I didn't have to go through it. He wished that he had never been born. Therefore, if I had never been born, I wouldn't have to endure what I was going through. Then he wonders why those who are suffering and wish for death to be alive are still alive and continue to be in sorrow. Read chapter 3, get you an updated version in NIV, and you'll see where he's saying God is allowing people who wish to be gone to still be here and suffer while they're going through it. But it concludes in chapter 3, verses 20 through 26. He concludes by stating that the one thing that I feared the most has actually happened to me. The loss, which is something that every person actually fears, or you wish never happens to you. You have lost everything materialistically. Your family members die, and you have bad health. Everyone's worried about their health. Don't care who you are. That's why everybody out there running about how to eating healthy, how to eat clean. Amen. Just get your behind out there and walk. That's a whole nother story. So the point is, everything that I wish wasn't going to happen is actually happened, which is trouble, pain, and sorrow. And at the very end, in chapter verse 25, 26, he says, to which there is no rest. Do y'all hear what he's saying? He's saying, what I'm going through, it seems like it's never going to stop. He later on tells you some stuff. So what I want you to get down in your spirit is everyone has gone through something. Or everyone's going to go through something. Everyone's going to have, or you've experienced, some grief, some sorrow, and some pain in your life. Amen. And if you haven't, as my dad used to say, and as you know Brother Bell would say, keep saying good morning. Because sometimes we don't see how people can be in grief, but something simple as losing a job. Think about that. That means I am now not where I used to be financially. Financial struggles have now kicked in. Sound like a little bit like Joe. Relationship issues. We all know I love it in him. Or people having divorce or having problems in the home. Job had issue with some lady that loved and he still loved, and you know she said, won't you curse God and go on back to business.
All right.
Poor or declining health would cause some people to do that. And most importantly, the one thing that everybody's going to have to face, if you haven't already faced, is the loss of a loved one. So the point is that even if you're comforting someone and you've been through similar or even the same thing they've been through before, I want you to hear this. Everyone does not, I repeat, everyone does not respond or react the same way you did when you went through what you went through. Let me make sure y'all get this in your spirit. Everybody is not going to act the same way you acted when you went through the loss of your family member. If a person is grieving the loss of a loved one, understand that you and that person are two different people. If a person is grieving the loss of a loved one, don't think that you're comforting them by saying, there's a dreaded phrase that people like to say, and I'm going to make sure that you get this in your head, get this in your spirit, and make sure you get this in your mind. There's some words that people don't want to hear when they experience the death of a loved one. The first thing that they don't want to hear, because I don't want to hear it, is, I know how you feel. The second thing people say that they ought not say, I know what you're going through. And here's my problem when people say, I know what you're going through. Then you proceed in telling them what you went through. But as I said before, my thing is, if you know someone's going through something, don't tell people, I know how you feel. And definitely don't tell people, I know what you're going through. If you ever thought about saying it, don't say it. If you know you already said it before, stop saying it. I don't want you to say, I know how you feel. Here's the reason why. Because you don't know how they feel. You just know how you felt, but you don't know how they feel, and you definitely don't know what they're going through. Everybody grieves differently. We have, y'all remember the last 2 years, how many funerals we've had? Everybody grieves differently. There are some people, when they grieve, they ain't gonna eat. Some people, when they grieve, they ain't gonna drink. Then there's some that won't eat, drink, or sleep. Then there's some that won't even speak to folk. So, when you went through your thing, it may have not stopped you from eating. But everybody doesn't grieve the same way you do. That makes sense, everybody? Yeah. And the reason why I say that is you need to be mindful when you say, I know what you're going through, or I know how you feel, because you have no idea what the relationship that the person who's living had with the person who passed away. There are people who've been married 10 years. Versus people who've been married 30 years. That's the folk who've been married 50 some odd years. They have different levels of how much they loved one another. So when someone loses a loved one, especially a husband and wife, there's a different type of feeling they're going to have. Here's why that's important. You don't know if that person who's still alive was on good terms or bad terms with the person that died. Think about this. Now, well, I'll say this way. You don't know if they had an argument the last time they talked to someone that passed away. So you don't know what type of relationship that person may have had. They may be feeling guilty because they had an argument. And the last thing they remember saying to that person is something that they probably can't repeat. You don't know how people feel when they're used to saying when they walk out the door. Let me ask you a question. When you leave the house or she leave the house, do y'all got any ritual thing that y'all say? Like, so when you leave the house going fishing or somewhere, does she say something to you or do you say something to her? Is it, excuse me, is it probably, you can say what it is that they say? Does she say to y'all each other?
She always tell me, be careful, be safe, be careful.
Now suppose she didn't speak to you when you walked out the door. Something happened. But she knew she should have said, be safe, be careful, I love you. Guess how that messes with that person's mind? Because I didn't get to say what I always say. So what I'm saying is, you don't know how someone feels, so be careful every time you say that. Because every time I go somewhere and have to visit someone's home, someone passed away, and I hear that, it turns my stomach inside out. Because you don't know what they're going through. And furthermore, grief, sorrow, and pain affects everyone differently because it's based on how we were raised. I was raised to, you're supposed to technically celebrate a person's death. Where some people are told that ain't what you're supposed to do. My grandmother has me terrified of seeing a person laid out in their funeral. That's why I don't like funerals. If I come in, I have to keep my head down because the last memory I have is my grandfather. That was the last person I actually saw physically in there. She made me touch his face. You talking about somebody that didn't sleep for a long time? He looked like he sleep. No, he didn't. He looked right. And all I kept thinking is I love Dracula movies. So I'm telling you, I just knew he was going to get up. And I'm just trying to tell you, that bothered me so much. And then it dawned on me, that's the last memory I had of my grandfather. So that's why if I don't mind funerals, but I will come in, but you will never see me look. Because you don't know how I feel. And my friend Michael, who passed away, I knew I wasn't going to look. But I had to do that prayer I was trying to get out of. And all I looked down, and I saw the casket. Then I pictured him. And then my emotions were apparently a little different than other people. Because I couldn't even finish my prayer because I said something in my prayer that just shook me. So everybody responds differently to grief. So my friend Edward came over there, he didn't say, I know how you feel. All he did was stood there and he was quiet. It's going to make sense. It's understand how we're raised one way. Second, it all depends on your experience. People who have been preachers' children, they see things a whole lot differently than folk who haven't been to funerals. So I try not to make sure that I don't look insensitive, but I got this rule. And if you have here is, leave folks alone for at least a week. Here's why, and I actually had to tell this to Summer because Summer didn't understand. I had mentioned it on the sermon, but I realized after looking at it, she wasn't here. When a person first passed away, everybody's at the house. Everybody, all in the way, eating up all the food. When do you need your friend the most? When everybody else is gone. So I'm that person that I'll make sure everything's okay. And if I don't hear from you, I believe if you want me to come in that first few moments, somebody call and say, I want to preach here. Because to me, I'm in the way. But after all is said and done, when you sit at home by yourself, missing that person who used to be there, that's when I'm going to call. how you doing? The next question I'm going to ask you is, are you eating? The next question I'm going to ask you, are you drinking? The very next question I'm going to ask you, are you sleeping? I had to ask that question for Anjanelle yesterday. She finally got out the house. I was going to come by. I told her I was going to come by, but I said I'm going to call before I come. She told me I'm eating a little, I'm drinking a little, and I'm sleeping a little. But the fact that she was out the house, that let me know, okay, she's a little bit better, because at one point, she wasn't doing anything because everyone was at the house. So she didn't have to go anywhere. Now, Michael's wife got the chance to sit back, and she's used to hearing the TV going. She's used to hear him running around in that little thing, making all that noise, cracking jokes like he always does. Now, he's not there. No one's there. It's quiet. That's when it's time to go check on something. That makes sense to y'all? That's how I see it. So, but if I need to go there, I know. But I'd rather wait till all the hoopla is gone, because now is the time you need to talk to them. If you're feeling some kind of way, I have no problem coming. But when you're entertained, I should use that word. When everybody's around, you don't think about it as much because everybody's there. It's when you're by yourself. So what am I saying is, now it's all in my head. As Cardi B said, if you don't know who it is, be careful with people. She said, be careful with me, but be careful how you deal with folk who are suffering. That makes sense, everybody? Now, matter of fact, I forgot one more. I don't know how I forgot this. There's one more phrase that I heard that I believe is worse than all the other sayings. And this phrase, personally, it probably rubs me as if I was cutting my hair in the wrong direction. It's going to leave bumps, and it's going to make my head hurt, and I'm going to need alcohol. And this is when I heard someone say, and I'm glad I didn't hear it when I went over there, it's God's will, because you know God don't make no mistakes. Who wants to hear that when they're going through some troubles? Who wants to hear that when a loved one has gone? It's God's will. Really? It may be, but there's a time and place to say what you're going to say. God don't make no mistakes. That in itself is the truth. But there's a time and place to make that statement. Because then they'll use Romans 8:28, where you know the Bible says, and we know all things work together for the good of those who love God. Yeah. To those who are called according to his purpose. He was called. She was called. That's not what the person wants to hear when they're going through, especially the loss of love. Because that ain't what I want to hear. You have to know that saying that, it's not going to make the person feel any better. And if anything, it may make things worse. Here's why. Oh, you're going to love this part. Job has something to do with it. Because you may, by saying what you said, just backed up the idea in their mind that they may have been sitting there thinking about. That God is punishing them for what they're going through. Or, by your statement like that, you're giving them an incentive to hate God. Because if God loved me, why did he take my child? Why did he take my dad? Why did he take my wife? Why did he take my husband? So by you saying that, you're giving them the idea that God is the reason, which he is, but there's a time and place to say what you're going to say. So now you're giving them the idea that God did this to you. God's punishing you, or God killed them, and God took them away from you. Now, do y'all see how that says? I know it sounds like, why is he going that way? Because I don't want to hear it. And the last person that said it, I heard him, I tapped him on the side and said, no, please don't say that. Well, why not? Can you come in for just a minute? Let me talk to you. Come on over here. And I had a conversation with this person, and I explained to them, this is what it sounds like. If that person is blaming God like Job did, and then you come in and tell you, it's God's will, God don't make no mistakes. So why would God do that to me? Remember, Job kept asking me, why me? What did I do? I'm innocent. Now, how many of us can say, in the midst of losing all three of those things, I'm going to fall down on my face and worship God and tell him thank you? Come on now. Let's don't act like we know better. And I said all that to say this because if you're not careful when you say that, those who are grieving, like in Job, verse number 7, that's why I didn't get a new Bible. I should have left that old one at home, the new one at home. Job 7, verse number 20, Job actually questioned God. And he asked God, why have you made me your target? Do y'all see that? He's saying, Lord, why have you made me your target? So now he's actually saying, God, I know you're the reason why they did it. Now he's right. But what I want you to understand is, that's the mindset of someone's grieving. Why is God attacking me? Why is God doing this to me? So they are blaming God. So if you're there to comfort someone who's suffering or grieving, the best thing you can do is not give your advice on how you think they feel, or how you feel, or how you claim you know they feel, or you know what they're going through. Or even saying something you think they might need to hear. Because you know what the best thing you ought to do when you come see someone who's grieving? Is just sit down and be quiet. Chapter 4 through verses 27. We're just going through the book. 4 through 27, so you know we ain't going to read a whole bunch of nothing. We see after they come in and they sit down and they be quiet, there begins a dialogue between Job and his friends. Here's the best part. After the dialogue, or during the dialogue, we can read that the friends actually heard what Job said, but they actually weren't listening to what Job said. Because, and I say this because they began to give advice to Job, but if they had been listening to Job, they wouldn't have said what they said. Here's what I mean. Chapter 3, if you read it several times, whether it's the King James Version, the New King James Version, the NIV, the New Biblical Version, the English Version, you're going to look, and I want you to tell me if you see what I haven't seen yet, where Job asked them one question, or where Job asked for their advice. Think about what I'm asking. Look and see if you can find what Job said, in your opinion, or if he said, can you tell me something? We already know that Job was in a depression and was pretty much on a nervous breakdown. So Job was just saying what was on his heart. So my point is, when folks are mourning, listen to them. Because they may just need to get something off their chest. Y'all ever thought about that? When someone's going through something, they may say all kind of stuff. Just sit there. As long as they ain't talking about, I need to kill myself. Listen, because you'll be missing what they're saying because you're so busy worried about what they said so you can reply. You listen to understand because they may just want to say what they need to say. Because I had a friend of mine who lost a family member. And I remember him saying, I know you're preaching my dog, but I'm going to say some stuff and I want you to forgive me. I said, ask for my forgiveness after whatever you get ready to say. He cussed out God like you wouldn't believe. Because he was that upset. And I understood why. So when he got done, I did it like Isaac did me. I said, you feel better? Yeah. And I know you're going to tell me what was wrong, but I had to say something because I'm mad at God for my mom being gone. So help me understand how I can deal with my mama being gone, and I know God is the reason why she's gone. He asked for my advice. He didn't just say what he said, and I sit there and waited. Ooh, he gonna use that cuss word of God? Uh-huh. Did he use that word? Okay. Then he talked about that? Uh-huh. Now I'm waiting to respond, because that's what Job's friends did. They heard what he said, but they didn't listen to what he said. So unless they ask you about how you feel, or can you help me with what I'm dealing with, the best thing you can do is what? Sit down and be quiet. Because we have to remember that when someone's suffering or grieving, they're likely to say anything. Because they're suffering physically, they're suffering emotionally, and they're suffering spiritually. And also when someone's suffering, again, they don't eat, they don't drink, they don't sleep. So most times they're delirious because they're not even fed physically the way they ought to be. Read chapter 7. Moving right along. Chapter 7. Job has been dealing with the issue of suffering that people don't understand. So Job's friend said something. So let me read chapter 7 so we can get this out. Is there not a time of hard service for a man on earth? Are not his days also like the days of a hired man? It'll click in a minute. Like a servant who is earnestly desires the shade, and like a hired man eagerly looks for its wages. So I have been allotted months of futility, and wearisome nights have been appointed to me. When I lie down, I say, when shall I rise, and the night be ended? For I have had my fill of tossing till dawn. My flesh is cracked with worms and dust. My skin is cracked and break out afresh. Here's what I'm trying to tell you. If we understand this, we can see from what Job says, he's been dealing with the issue that he's been going through for months before his friends ever showed up. How many of y'all actually read that and realized it ain't like just to happen? He came in a couple of days later. Months had came by before his friends came. His health issues. He was in so much pain, and whatever was going through his mind, he tossed and turned all night long. Y'all see that? So guess what he didn't do? He didn't sleep well. Because of his grief, verse number 6 tells us that suffering and pain, his days swiftly go by with the idea of no hope or ever feeling better or feeling good again. He was in so much pain, it's like this pain is never going to go away. That's why he said, I just wish, I don't understand why the Lord wants people who want to die. Well, why don't he let them die? And he keeps letting them still alive so they can suffer. Verses 7 through 10, he expects to die and go to his grave, and when I get there, ain't nobody gonna remember me. When you read that, I was like, wow, this man is suffering to the point he don't even care if nobody else even remembers me. I just want to be gone. Now, why is it important about this passage of scripture? It's because it really means you cannot put a time limit on how long someone can suffer. Listen to what I'm saying. It was months before his friends came, and this man is still suffering. So you don't have a right to put a time limit on how long someone's supposed to suffer, all based on what you think. Secondly, there will be some folks who are going to grieve the loss of a loved one for more than 7 days. They may grieve the loss of a loved one 5 years, 10 years, or even to the day that they die. They may not be wailing and crying out aloud for everybody to see them and stuff, but they still grieve. I've seen people who grieve their parents or a loved one on their birthday. They've been dead and gone for a while, but they grieve. Mess around and let Mother's Day or Father's Day come. Tell me you won't see some people grieving because they miss their mother or their father. And then there's the season, or the reason for the season, which is Christmas, when a lot of folk grieve because they're missing the loss of a loved one. So in other words, folk may not be through grieving or throwing dust of mourning on themselves. So before you speak and call yourself giving advice or telling folk what you think they need to hear, wait till the dust settles. In other words, wait till you know that they are no longer grieving the way they do before you speak. Because again, you don't know what state of mind someone may be in, where they are emotionally or spiritually. Because I always say, you mess around and say the wrong thing to the wrong person, they might whoop you. And I'm trying to explain something to you because that's why we have to be careful when someone who's grieving, because you don't know the relationship that they may have had with the loss of a loved one. So in your effort to comfort folk, you can be just like Job's friends. They didn't wait till the dust settles. Okay, it's 11 months now. So we're going to sit here for 7 days. But when we get done, he ought to be done with his grieving. They still didn't wait till the dust settles. You may actually say the wrong thing and make matters worse than they were before you get there. So that means, don't put people on your time frame. If someone's grieving and it's been 2 weeks, and you go by to see them, just sit down, be quiet. That makes sense? this, everyone? Because we're finna get this. So, here's some things that Job's friends did that he said to them that kind of blew me out the water. Now, they know he's suffering. They know he's going through what he's going through. But they say something like this. In chapter 4, Eliphaz. First statement, he told Job, you must have done something wrong. And you deserve the punishment that you're getting. Someone's grieving. If I was in a depression, guess what? I'm actually just going to get a gun and shoot myself for what he just said. This is supposed to be your friend, and he's saying what you're going through, it's all your fault. You've done something. We just don't know what it is, but you deserve the punishment. In chapter 15, Eliphaz says, he reiterates what he said, it's the wicked man that struggles in pain. So, he tells them the pain that you're going through physically is because you're wicked. That's what I said, the wow. It's a whole bunch more stuff, so I had to shorten it up. Chapter 8, Bildad, the second brother. He told Job, stop whining and complaining. And then he had the nerve to say, your children probably died because they were sinful. Can you, when you get a chance, read chapter 8. Because he said they probably died. We didn't say probably. That's the idea that I get, that he said they probably died, even though it kind of looks like he said they did die because they were sinful. That's terrible. Anyway, Zophar. Later on down, like he said some stuff just blew me out the water, but I only want to stick to one. Zophar, the third cat, chapter 20 through 29. Chapter 20, verse 20 through 29. He told Job that losing everything, and in matter of fact, he used the word, and having to deal with terror and darkness, those are words he used, is a portion or the reward of God that has been appointed to wicked folk. Now, help me understand this. This man is grieving, and he just basically, he didn't say it, but he said terror, grieving, losing everything. It only happens to folk who've been wicked, and that's how God deals with it. Now, from what we know, was Job wicked as they say he was? So you don't know what God knows. God's ways are not your way. You ain't God. So be careful in how you talk to folk. Because they accused him of something that he wasn't even guilty of. That's just the way it is. So even though Job's friends were there, they came to comfort him. They came to support him. At what point did their advice comfort Job? And if you keep reading, you won't find it anywhere. As a matter of fact, they were actually condemning, condescending, and judgmental toward Job. And Job had had enough. So you know what Job called his friends? Come on, y'all got to remember this, chapter 16, verse number 2. Job had got so sick and tired of them, he called them miserable comforters. Got to read that. Chapter 16, verse number 2. When someone says, the actual word miserable is actually sorry. Y'all some sorry comforters. In other words, why did you come? You have made me feel worse than you before you came. That's sad, but that's what I'm trying to tell you. Be careful when you call yourself talking to folk who's going through some stuff. So the best thing they could have did, sit down and stay quiet. Because soon, as a matter of fact, after Job got through saying what he's saying, the very next word, let me see, I got to see, here it was. Job said what he said. Chapter 3, Job opened his mouth and cursed David's verse number 1. Verse number 26, I am not at ease, nor am I quiet. I have no rest, for trouble comes. Then Eliphaz, the Temanite, answered and said, answered what? He didn't ask the question. See what I'm talking about? Got to be careful. So, they were miserable comforters. So, as I conclude this lesson, I want you to see that there was one person by the name of Elihu who actually did wait till the dust settled before he responded. He waited till all was said and done and assessed the situation, and then he responded. Let's see. He said, So these three men stopped answering Job because he was righteous in his own eyes. But Elihu, the son of Barchel, the Buzite, the family of Ram, became angry with Job for justifying himself rather than God. I think it's verse chapter 35. I got it in here. Now Elihu had waited before speaking to Job because they were older than him. Let's repeat that. Elihu had waited before speaking to Job because they were older than him. But when he saw that the three men had nothing more to say, his anger aroused. So Elihu, the son of Barachel, the Buzite, said, I am young in years. And you are old. And that is why I was fearful, not daring to tell you what I know. I thought age should speak. Advanced years should teach wisdom. Let me say that again. I thought age, your age, older people should speak. And advanced years should teach wisdom. You old enough to know better. But it is the spirit in the person, the breath of the Almighty God that gives them understanding. It's not only that the old who are wise, not only the aged who understand what is right. Therefore I say, listen to me. I too will tell you what I know. I waited while you spoke. I listened to your reasoning. While you were searching for your words, I gave my full attention. But one of you have proved Job wrong. None of you have proved Job wrong. None of you have answered his argument. So here's the thing. Gotta get my whole Bible because I can't find it in that one. When you do your notes, and you're used to using this big old Bible, and I told my son this Bible used to be this thin. Keep wasting water, Kool-Aid, and everything else in it, you'll understand. I'm gonna give you that scripture. So what happened is verses 1 through 6 of Job, verses 6 through 10. One of the things that Elihu says is that just because you're old doesn't necessarily mean you got wisdom. He was a younger man. So in other words, just because you've been on this earth for a long time, that don't mean nothing. Because we got some young fools and we got some old fools too. So just because I've been in the church 25, 30, 40, 50 years, that don't mean nothing. He's saying basically you don't know nothing either. So be mindful. It's chapter 32. I know I have my notes in chapter 32 of Job when Elihu speaks. So all I'm saying is, what he's saying is, y'all old enough, y'all should have wisdom to know the way you talk to this young man, y'all know better. That's why when you see older people like, is that how you talk to folk? Now, just because you've been on this earth for a long time doesn't mean that you understand everything. Your advice ain't always good for everything. One shoe don't fit everybody, one size don't fit everybody. Wisdom says, I know I need to talk to this person a different way, and wisdom says I need to talk to that person a different way. That means because I have a relationship with you, I know I can talk to Jimmy a certain way that I can't talk to Tim the same way. I can talk to Tim one way, but I can't talk to someone the same way because they have different personalities. In other words, there should be a relationship to which you know how, and understand just because your past experience, you ought to be done with it by now. Verse 35-14, that's why I kept remembering. So 35-14, Elihu gives the best advice. He tells Job, 35-14, trust in God and wait on him to answer your prayers. The youngest one out of all of them, and one who's supposed to be his friend, said nothing like that. So if you're going to say something, trust in God. Wait on God to answer your prayers. Wait on God to help you while you're in the midst of what you're going through, instead of telling him it's all your fault. I know what you're going through. So this young man understood that Job was mourning, and he had been mourning for months. Remember now, months. So he listened to Job, and he listened to Job's friends, and even though he was angry at all his friends, he still responded with respect. So, in other words, if I think Jimmy's saying the wrong thing to one of y'all, I don't need to embarrass him. Like that young man, older man was at the place where he said what he said. Could you come in for a minute? Let me talk to you and explain to you why what you say sounds good, but it doesn't help the person. He offers Job a response that actually exalts God's tolerance and God's greatness. And he condemns Job's three friends and basically corrects Job where Job went wrong. He didn't beat up Job, but Job, like Job, you said some stuff we ought not to. So if you don't get nothing else out of this lesson, be mindful that everyone suffers and mourns differently. Please understand that. Don't ever form your lips to tell someone who's suffering, you need to stop all that crying. I had a person tell me that that's what one of the church members told them. They told me to stop all that crying. Then they told them, you need to get over it and move on with your life. And I know this person meant well, but that is the wisdom of the world, not the wisdom of God. Because there's no comfort in you telling me to stop crying. Okay. And you don't know what I have been through. So my brothers and sisters, there is no specific time, nor will there ever be a specific time when a person is supposed to stop mourning. Please understand that. Now, I'm saying this because it took me a while to see something. At this certain time of year, or certain time of thing, I used to notice, and I'm going to say Sister Ida, and it just never clicked. And then finally one day I said, LaPonce, where is Ida? And then it hit me all over again. It's the same time frame. She's still grieving over something that happened a while ago. So we have to be mindful. It's supposed to happen, it's about time to stop all that crying. Do y'all hear out that sound? How insensitive that is. Because I understand why she's crying. And you ain't gonna never tell a mama to not stop grieving over their family. That's just something within them. So what I'm saying is, be sensitive. If you see someone crying, Mother's Day, I seen tears of people I hadn't seen crying. I'm like, so I had to literally, that's why I said Mother's Day to me is the hardest something to do. Because I have to be mindful of what I'm saying. Father's Day, I can talk about your dad and tell me you can jump in the river. Y'all are laughing with me. But what you see is, when you notice something, just sit down and be quiet. Unless they ask you to say something, just sit down and be quiet. So regardless of how close of a friend you are, or how close of a family member you are, matter of fact, I can't see LaPonce even saying that. Look, you need to stop all that crying. I want you to think, put yourself in the other person's shoes.
Amen.
Matter of fact, just keep on saying good morning. Yeah. You're going to deal with some sorrow, some pain, and some other stuff. And when it comes, ask yourself, do you really want to hear someone tell you it's time for you to suck it up? It's time for you to stop all that crying and move on with your life. Do you think you want to hear that? I don't think so. Would you like to hear someone tell you it's all your fault as to why you're going through what you're going through? Would you like someone to tell you you've been crying too long, it's time to move on? We all know the answer is no. So you and I both know the one thing that we want any family member or any friend to do when we are going through something, come on. But when you get here, sit down and be quiet. If nothing else, just being there and let someone get stuff off their chest, you never know how much that feels. Matter of fact, James said, confess your faults one to another. The problem is, the person's scared they're going to confess their faults and everybody going to know their faults.
Yes.
But the thing is, as members of the church, that's the one thing we ought to be able to do, is allow someone to confess whatever's on their heart to come out, so that the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous person avails much. There may be someone here that may not be a child of God. I need you to understand that even if you know that someone in the family member have said things and did things and you may have suffered, I can tell you that there's a brother, there's a person that sticks closer than a brother. There's a God who is a father when you don't have a father, a mother when you don't have a mother. But it's somebody you can talk to and never worry about somebody else, or we'll say Jesus repeating to somebody else what you said. Whenever you're going through grief and sorrow and pain, you can go to this person, because this person is the reason why you don't have to worry about too much pain, too much sorrow, too much grief, because he did something for you that we couldn't do for ourselves. And that's died on the cross. So not only do we have the tree of life, he gave us some spiritual promises, some spiritual blessings that only come to those in his family. So you can comfort each other in some words that he's made sure to down. You can privileges has its benefits being in Christ. So Jesus can comfort you when no one else can. In the middle of the night when you can't call your friends, you can call on Jesus. But in order to be in a position where Jesus can not only answer your questions, but possibly fill your request, you have to be in Christ. And to be in Christ, you have to believe that Jesus came on this earth, died for all our sins, was buried in a tomb, and rose again the third day according to the scriptures. If you believe that, you're going to repent of your sins. I'm going to change the way I live. I'm going to confess that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Then I will go in the water of baptism where I then come in contact with the blood through the water because of what Jesus did on the cross. And if you're here and you realize that you have not been living up to the vocation which God has called you all to be, you can repent of your sins as together we sing a verse of our encouragement song. Softly.